Are you ready? You think you can tell us what to do? You think you can tell us what to wear? You think that you're better? Well, you better get ready. Bow to the masters. Break it down!
What is up? Welcome, everybody. How is everybody doing? Back for another week of pro wrestling talk. Today's show is kind of a dedicated to Owen Hart, who tragically passed away. It'll be 21 years ago on the 23rd of this month due to an in-ring stunt that went wrong. Anybody that was able to watch the Dark Side of the Ring documentary last night was pretty powerful. Real quick, let me go through the lineup real quick and say hi to some peeps. My daughter, Sammy's in the house. My son, hey, look at that. 2 out of the 4 people so far, family members. You guys rock. My son, Frank Jr., what's up? Aaron, the wrestling extraordinaire. She knows her wrestling, apparently. Or the best off her king is feeding her lions, I'm not sure. But welcome, Aaron. Tommy 2.0, the bargain effect. What's up, brother? Good seeing you in here. Guess my Owen Hart sign in the background's not, the big guy's blocking it, apparently. So, but OSP, what's up? Chris, welcome in. So, we just got off a Revs live chat. Did not win any Panini Mosaic cards or a metal detector, but you know what? It is all good because we're here to talk some wrestling, and so we'll open it up. Whatever y'all want to talk about. Like I said, I do want to touch on the Owen Hart tragedy. Anybody not familiar with it? Again, like I said, I'm sure everybody has. That's in the chat, but we'll wait for a few more people to drop in before we get going heavy on conversation. So what else everybody up to today? We can talk about something else shortly while we wait for some more people to drop in. You had some uploading issues, Aaron, with your YouTube videos you tried to upload today. Is that what you're saying? Aaron, the last couple days have been actually kind of slow for sales-wise. I think I have 4 so far. Nothing to write home about. And it's all closed, too. And not a whole lot in dollar-wise. Tommy, not a big wrestling fan, huh, brother? I need to get you on that. Actually, today's product is really bad, so I wouldn't blame you for not watching anything that's going on in wrestling right now anyways. But old school wrestling is more my speed, back when it used to be good. Chris, the documentary was actually really good. Obviously, there's nothing I can't spoil about it, because obviously we all know the end game of that. But it was actually a really good documentary. Owen's wife actually has the carabiner that was used to hold him suspended above the ring. And man, I am here to tell you, I do not know how they thought that was going to hold a 250-pound man or person, period, for any length of time. I mean, it was a shoddy rigging at best. Something that honestly, and I don't, something that a billion-dollar corporation, what they had to have spent for the riggers to do the rigging for Owen compared to what for the effect that they were trying to get and everything out of it. Obviously, it's been documented. The whole lowering him from the ring, from the rafters down into the ring, was to mock Sting, because that was Sting's. That was kind of his gimmick. That was his moniker to be lowered into the ring, and then the idea was from there was to excuse me, folks. They did not like how it could take up to 2 or 3 seconds longer for when Sting would do the gimmick and he'd be lowered into the ring, or when Owen did it a few times, it would take an extra 2 or 3 seconds for him to disconnect from the harness. And they wanted to save that 2 or 3 seconds of camera time. And that's when they decided to go with this particular rigger, because the other rigging companies that were used for Disney and Hollywood studios and whatnot said that there would be no way they would ever lower anybody with the quick release harness that they wanted to do. So literally they raced to the bottom and found somebody that was willing to set up a rigging, and they got what they wanted, in the sense of they have found a guy that basically jury rigged a quick release system to allow Owen, once he would get lowered into the ring, he could actually pull a cord from the front side and it would disconnect the carabiner and drop him. I will say this, so Star City Picker, welcome in. They actually show during the documentary Owen's widow, Martha, and their son Oj. They actually show them up on the catwalk looking down onto the ring, and they actually have police photos of the ring with, like you said, Star City, the blood stains visible, both from the top of the catwalk and at the ringside level. So it was pretty crazy, guys. I mean, the sad thing about it was, I mean, we all loved the Monday Night Wars. Obviously, it was the best time to be a wrestling fan. The storylines, the gimmicks, everything they were doing back then was amazing. Chris, I couldn't imagine with literally everything being caught on camera these days with cell phones. Sadly, there would probably be about 500 different angles of the fall. No, Amanda. Actually, the wife and kids were at home, so no, his wife and kids were not in the arena when it happened. Again, some of the things that it blows my mind that the Kansas City Police Department allowed the event to go on, because at that point it was a crime scene, and by the time they went back to investigate and everything, I mean, the whole area, everything was so contaminated from, I believe that was maybe the second or third match on the card. Owen was actually scheduled to beat the Godfather for the Intercontinental title at that pay-per-view. And I honestly don't know how the wrestlers could have even performed after that. I mean, we talk about now with what's going on with COVID-19 and how the wrestlers can perform in front of no audience now, watching, either Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or NXT or AEW. But I mean, can you imagine being asked to go out and perform after one of your comrades, or however you want to call them, your friends, your cohort, literally just died in the middle of the ring, and now you're supposed to go out and perform? Chris, another part of the documentary where they interviewed Jim Ross, and he said Kevin Dunn, who was the producer for the pay-per-view, got into the headphone and into JR's headphone and said, "You need to announce that Owen Hart just died. We're going live in 10." And so literally the iconic, if you will, or whatever term you want to use for it, video of Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler sitting at ringside and announcing that Owen Hart had died was literally put together on the fly in a matter of 10 seconds. And how JR was able to do what he did in that amount of time, getting blindsided. I mean, obviously, I think they pretty much knew he was gone, but to get that official word and then be told, you need to tell 15,000 people. Well, actually, the fans in the arena didn't even know that Owen had died at that point. A lot of people in the stands actually thought it was a stunt and it was a dummy that had, that they had gimmicked to fall into the ring and whatnot. So the fans in the arena, other than what people might have, because again, we're talking 1999 and not everybody had a cell phone. Certainly nobody had a smartphone to be able to get on their, and Google anything at that point. So so for JR to have to go announce it to however many millions of people were watching the pay-per-view, again, I couldn't imagine the responsibility of that. The only way closeness I could compare it to would be when I had to make the phone call to my wife's mom to let her know my wife was sick when she had her stroke. Obviously, a couple different scenarios, but even Martha Hart explaining in the documentary when Vince McMahon called her to tell her, but all he told her was Owen Hart had fallen, but he didn't even tell her that he had died. Somebody else from the company called her after the fact and let him, that person told Martha that Owen had died. And then she had the responsibility of going and telling her two small children, who I think were 7 and 3 at the time, that their dad was not coming home. So it was interesting. I mean, I've read the book. I don't know if anybody has actually, Martha Hart wrote a book called Owen, King of Hearts, I believe was the name of the book. And it's hard to explain how much what she went through. I mean, yeah, from what I understand, Star City Picker, according to the book, was, when, you have the corner of the ring, right? Turnbuckle, post. His body, because he was doing his best to avoid hitting the referee who was standing in the corner as he was falling. So he yelled at the referee to move out of the way. And actually, I believe it was Owen's, maybe his cape or something hit the referee. But so kind of hard to visualize, but to say this is the corner of the ring, Owen actually, in the book, Martha says his body actually kind of completed almost like a square. So he was at a 90-degree. Chris, no, Brett did not talk on the documentary. The only people that talked in the documentary were Jim Ross, Martha Hart, Oj, which is Owen's son, Owen's daughter Athena, and the referee Jimmy Corderas was the referee that was in the ring that got hit by Owen, and then Jim Cornette and Chris Jericho. We're gonna see my brother's in the backstage, so I'm gonna try to bring him in. Bro, what's up?
What's going on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just talking about, did you watch the documentary last night?
Yeah, I sure did. It was pretty, like you said, it was pretty revealing, actually. Like you were talking about the contraption they had set up. The thing was literally hooked on by like a quarter-inch of hook, if you will. It wasn't even enclosed.
Yeah,
it was a little like a little latch similar like this, and I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it literally had it had like just like a little tooth that was holding. I mean, I can't explain it. You got, obviously if hey yo, um, two things that kind of gave me the chills was one that they actually gave Martha the carabiner with the quick release. Like she still has the mechanism that caused her husband's death. And then those other police photos that I have never seen before that showed the ring and the blood stains and stuff like that was pretty creepy. I mean, I'm not the most I've been known to not be the most sensitive person on the planet, but I mean I've read the book that Martha wrote about Owen, and so I knew a lot of the details as it was, but to see some of that stuff was pretty it was pretty creepy. I mean, and sadly, and I think Chris might have mentioned it earlier in the show that, they brought Owen back with the blue blazer gimmick, and they talk about it on the documentary about, I mean, they literally brought him back because they had nothing for him. I mean, they kept him because Brett got screwed with the Montreal screw job. And so that's the reason why Owen kept his job in the WWE. But they literally had nothing for him, so they decided to bring back the blue blazer gimmick for I don't know if it was for people to stroke their own egos or what the thinking was behind it, but at the time the feeling was there was no room for a high flyer, smaller wrestler type of gimmick. And then sadly, like they say in the documentary, and then all of a sudden within a year they had Jericho on the roster,
Malenko, Benoit, Eddie
Guerrero, Chris Benoit,
all those guys that would have been. Could you imagine the programs those guys would have had together? Right?
Yeah, I mean, he would have been able to. I'm gonna try to bring up this picture. This is similar. This isn't exactly like what they used on Owen, Dan, but it is a pretty darn close representation of it. Oops. Kind of similar to that.
I think that's even less. That's even more of a hook than what he actually had on.
I literally think if you look right here, that little, 1/4-inch lip or whatever that is that's on there, that's more than what was suspending Owen Hart above the ring.
Frank, what it kind of reminds me of? If you look at a padlock and it has that little notch in the
you have a combination lock
into it, yeah, and that's hooked into it, and that was about it.
What is it?
Frank, when you were talking about the overhead view of the ring, the blood and stuff that was in the corner, he said he actually hit so hard he actually broke the wood underneath the ring, and there was a soft spot in that corner that they were stepping in and almost falling.
Yeah, they showed a section of the ring where the ring actually had, it was concave from the wood that they use. Yeah. Son, did you watch the documentary last night?
I did not. We don't have cable, and it's not on YouTube yet, I don't think. So,
Frank, when he left to go to that arena or to that show, and he had said something to his son, I believe, about take care of your mom, and he said it felt like he said he had a feeling someone bad, like it was kind of goodbye type of thing. Take care of your mom. I'll be, whatever kind of a, and even JR, I believe, said that he didn't look right that day of the show. Like there was something on his mind or something didn't feel right about was that day or whatever it was.
Getting back to the Monday Night Wars and stuff, and like a lot of people don't realize, kind of a cause and effect. Like, unfortunately and sadly, one of the reasons why the British Bulldog isn't here today was in a roundabout sort of way had to do with the pettiness of the Monday Night Wars, because don't know how much people know in the chat, but when British Bulldog was wrestling in WCW, they had the trap door that allowed the Ultimate Warrior to come in through the ring all the time with the smoke. And he got body slammed onto that trap door part of the ring and actually injured his back really bad. And I believe he developed a staph infection and was paralyzed shortly and got addicted to painkillers, obviously, because of it. And then ultimately that led to his demise. And I believe he died of a heart attack, which was attributed to painkiller addiction. And so again, it was the pettiness of the Monday Night Wars that they were worried so much about getting extra ratings by having the Ultimate Warrior come through the ring that, you know, he ended up getting injured because of the stupid track door that didn't draw a single extra viewer to the show. It did nothing to add viewership other than, again, it was the egos of they had to make it look cool and this and that. And
I thought that happened to Mr. Perfect too, didn't it? Same thing, kind of.
No, he just died of a cocaine overdose.
Yeah, you know, you watch a lot of those Dark Side of the Ring thing. Obviously, the painkiller and the recreational illegal drugs that was going on with all these wrestlers that have, you know, passed on. You know, like the Road Warriors and Hart from the Road Warriors. This was last week, and he, you know, they said he would give you the shirt off his back. He was the nicest guy in the world. But you know, that gets involved into the thing with the painkillers, and then start getting into drugs, and then, you know, it keeps going and going. And it seemed even I think Hawk even kind of found God, I guess, and rebaptized, and a little bit after that he landed up dying, right? I think after.
Yeah, he had yeah, the Hulk Hogan Star City Picker. Yeah, when the Ultimate Warrior was on the
where you could see him,
the mirror and Star City Picker. Have you ever read the Death of WCW book? They talk about that angle where, you know, Bischoff's talking to Hogan. Hogan sees the Ultimate Warrior in the mirror, but Bischoff doesn't see. Hold on, let me get. Bischoff sees Hogan. Hogan sees the Ultimate Warrior in the mirror. Bischoff doesn't see the Ultimate Warrior in the mirror. But we as the fans see the Ultimate Warrior in the mirror, but Hogan and Bischoff act like they don't see the Ultimate Warrior in the mirror. So, I mean, it was a cluster of, you know, confusing, made no sense. But yeah, so
I was gonna say, one of the days you talk about Russo, man, get him, because a lot of the things were, I'm sure, some of his ideas in there.
Yeah, you know, part of the allegedly, again, this is alleged, but the rumor was a lot of people blame Russo for Owen Hart dying because it was Russo's idea to bring back the Blue Blazer gimmick and do the whole comedy routine with him not being able to disconnect from the harness. So the wrestler on it, they showed him a video of the wrestler to beat him up while he's dangling, and the announcers are making Owen to look like a complete ass and everything else. And don't get me wrong, in my opinion, Owen was a phenomenal wrestler. He didn't have the charisma that I think would have made him would he have been a star? I don't know. I don't know if he would have stayed around wrestling long enough to be a star, because I know he wanted out of the business.
Yeah, he wanted to make money and then be able to be with his kids and walk around and enjoy them, you know. So yeah, he was going to be done. But I think, like I said, I wish I could have saw him when all those guys came from WCW over to see how he could do with those guys. I mean,
Yeah, because a couple short months later, Owen dies in May of '99, and then
WWC Invasion
3
angle.
months later, Jericho debuts on Raw, and he was one of the first, and I quote Kevin Nash, one of the vanilla midgets that he thought nobody would pay to see.
I remember they had the whole Jericho countdown thing. Remember, said he was coming down, and it blew up, and it was huge.
Okay, hold on, guys. I'm gonna share. Dan found me the clip. Oops, hold on. I messed up. Remove that. Stop sharing. I gotta go back in because I gotta have the audio as well. Hey guys, if you guys can mute your deals real quick so I can play this screen.
And so, what evidence did the Kansas City? They brought everything in and they put it all out on a table, and then we kind of went through everything slowly. And that's the first time that I saw the clip. This is some of the legal documents, and this is actually the clip that held on. This is the actual clip. It's a clip meant for the sole use of sailboats, and how it's designed is it's designed to release on load. So when you have a load on it, and then when you just click it, then it just opens. It opens immediately because the design is to let the mast down on a sailboat. It's this quick release right here, 6 pounds of pressure to release it like that. That's it. This is what was holding him. This little thing right there. That's it. When I first saw the clip, the very first time, I gasped, and I was so upset. It was just appalling. We looked at statements to really piece together what we felt Owen's last day was like.
And so what evidence did the state police show?
They brought everything in and they put it all out on the table, and then we kind of went through everything slowly, and that's the first time that I saw the clip. This is some of the legal documents, and this is actually the clip that held on. This is the actual clip. It's a
Crazy.
There's does she have, or is there any video of him falling? I know they said there's some, but it's been like legally blocked, like nobody can do a show.
So from what I understand, from what I've read, my research has found out the WWE has the only physical copy of the if there is a copy, the WWE is the only one that has it, because keep in mind, when he was falling, they were actually in the middle of doing a backstage interview with him, a pre-filmed vignette of him. So there was no live cameras on the ring or anything like that, to the best of their knowledge, other than maybe WWE may have some secondary footage, raw footage that has it.
Yeah. Apparently, they probably don't have as many cameras now like they do today, where they have every angle possible.
Yeah, and keep in mind,
Yes.
they also did not have I don't even know if Martha has ever actually seen the actual video, because keep in mind, they never actually went to trial. They landed up settling out of court. At the time, it was disclosed, but she said last night it was $18 million is what they got for. Because again, keep in mind, the WWE wanted to have the trial in Connecticut, not in Kansas City, and strictly because Connecticut, there's no punitive damage and wrongful death lawsuits. So had Vince McMahon had it his way, the trial would have been in Connecticut, and she wouldn't have been awarded anything. um, and then, yeah, once they knew something wrong happened, they just did a lot of wide camera shots, and they never once showed anything in the ring.
I'm sorry, Frank. Didn't Jerry Lawler seen him because he kind of nudged Jim Ross and saw him that he was falling, and told him to look up, and then he saw him come down. Like you said, he brushed the referee, and he hit the rope out of his hand that he was holding on to. He was checking the turnbuckles or something like that. But
if he did, again, like I said, we would never see it. I actually have. This was probably 10, 12 years ago, somewhere in my mess. Frankie might even have it. I have the actual live pay-per-view. Somebody obviously recorded it at their house, and I've watched the DVD. Because again, the actual Over the Edge pay-per-view never came out on DVD or VHS, for obvious reasons. Now it's on the network, but it's been so heavily edited to not have any reference to the Owen Hart match or anything.
Yeah, they do. They talk about it on the network right in the beginning.
What's that?
They talk about it on the beginning of the pay-per-view. Like they skip the whole thing, and they talk about they don't mention his name, but they talk about an unfortunate event happened, and they don't mention his name though.
Right. So I have somewhere in this house, I have an actual DVD copy of the live pay-per-view. And again, when you watch it, they have Jim Ross and Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler saying, we're going to go backstage to Kevin Kelly, blah, blah, blah. And so they show the interview with the Blue Blazer. And then as soon as the interview's over, that's when they cut back to the Lawler and Ross. And that's when Jim Ross starts with the folks, Owen Hart was set to make a spectacular entrance, yada, yada, yada. This isn't part of the show. We're this, we're that. And then that's when they just started doing the wide crowd shots. Not referencing, never once did they go towards the ring other than what you could hear Lawler, because then Lawler gets up and walks to the corner, and the reason why there was the blood, a lot of people don't realize, the reason why there was blood on the ring, Matt, was because Owen Hart, his arm snapped. He had a compound fracture in either his right or his left arm, and that's where the blood on the mat was from, was his arm snapping, and it was a compound fracture that broke the skin, the whole 9 yards, and that's where the blood came from. But short of that, looking at Owen, again, this is the book that Martha wrote, there was no, other than the broken arm, there was no physical damage to Owen Hart. It was all internal. His heart basically, for a lack of a better term, exploded in his heart and his chest from the impact of hitting the turnbuckle and the ropes. Yeah, he briefly tried to sit up and sat back down, or laid back down, I should say, because he actually died on the operating room in the hospital. Because according to Martha, he had what do they call that? He had slight arrhythmic heartbeat, but it was I can't remember the terminology she used, but yeah, he died. I mean, everybody knew, he was already turning blue as they were wheeling him to the back, no pun intended. So he was already blue and gray by the time they wheeled him back. And then at that point, sadly, it was, I don't want to say rudimentary. What would be the word I'm looking for? I mean, it was, there were attempts to resuscitate and save his life, but it was
futile.
Yeah, it was futile at best.
Yeah, there was no repairing with that damage because it is. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. And again, the part that frustrates me about it is that did not have to happen. they've done some stupid stuff in wrestling. You know, New Jack trying to be a piece of crap and kill Vic Grimes because of whatever is stupidity, you know, on a totally different level. But for Owen Hart to die because they wanted to
Save 2 seconds.
Sting, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't believe when they said that that's all they were worried about if he couldn't unlatch it fast enough, to get do what he had to do. That's just
2 to 3 seconds.
Yeah.
We can count it down right now. That's how much time they wanted to save. And it wasn't going to add a single buy to the pay-per-view. It wasn't going to put another ass every 18 inches. It wasn't going to do nothing other than they needed to make fun of WCW because there was a war and needed to be won. You know, at bear no expense, whether it be, you know, they bared the expense of paying extra money to have professional riggers do the job, but not at the expense of a human life, you know. And I get some of the decisions McMahon made. I totally get the Montreal screw job. I would have done the same thing. Bret Hart wanted to make sure he left his home country as champion and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And as much petty stuff as Bischoff was doing, I don't blame. Things don't make sense to me. Christ's sakes, it's your belt, Vince McMahon. You can't just take the damn belt away from him. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how any of that stuff. I don't know how any of that made sense. Even the Montreal screw job. At the end of the day, WCW could have had a belt made, right? Why were they so worried about getting that belt away from him when they could have literally paid to have a replica belt made? Maybe the world of professional wrestling, I guess that's all I can say.
Yeah, some of the stuff they do to think that's gonna make great effects thing, like when they used actually Road Warrior Hawk's alcohol and drug problem when they actually they threw him off the top of the Titantron, where he was committing suicide or whatever he was going to do. And it doesn't do nothing really. I mean, it's all just shock value. That's about it. But it doesn't,
But that's why I keep saying, we've talked about it before. Like some of the wrestlers that they come up with, who in their right mind really thinks Fandango was going to draw anybody? Who the hell thought that what was that? No Way Jose or whatever the heck that guy's name was. Who
after they tried the Rose, what's his name, Adam Rose, and all the other people that dance around the thing doing different. Okay, this is the Calypso. This is the the whatever, the Charleston, whatever you want to, the dance thing. It's just
and I don't know if they thought like with Fandango. I know Dancing with the Stars was.
That's what it was.
But seriously, I mean, well, here's a great backstory to play off of your name a little bit, bro. When Scott Hall went to meet with, I think this was back in 93, 92, 91, maybe. So he was meeting with like Vince McMahon, Pat Patterson, and a couple other of the head people, talent people. And they were wanting to come up with a character for Scott Hall. And literally Scott Hall laid out what's his name from Scarface, son?
Al Pacino?
Yeah, but what's his name in the movie? Tony Montana? He literally... The Razor Ramon character is literally Tony Montana, but Vince McMahon had never seen the movie Scarface, so he literally thought Scott Hall was this creative genius to come up with this Cuban, Miami, hey Chico, toothpick, the whole 9 yards. It was literally Scarface, word for word. But Vince McMahon, what I have heard, is not the most in tune people in the world when it comes to pop culture and stuff. And so literally that's how he got that character, was because Vince McMahon had never seen Scarface, so he thought he was coming up with some Thrift Flip 80. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I have not watched wrestling in months because of the one, it was almost unwatchable even before the audience went away. But again, we've talked about it. Frankie, you and I have talked about it. Ray, you and I have talked about it. How can you take a guy like Rusev, who was totally over with the fans, and they cut him off, and now he's gone, right? He's not even with WWE anymore.
Yeah, they didn't re-sign him. Yeah.
They released Luke Gallows too, didn't they, or no?
Yeah,
Luke
both of them.
And
the OC guys, whatever they were called.
Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows.
Yeah, they're both gone.
If they would have kept him as Festus, that'd been better.
Festus.
Speaking of Scott Hall, remember when he was in the AWA? He looked like Magnum PI. Remember?
Yeah.
Cowboy guy, mustache and curly hair. He looked nothing
Big
like.
Scott Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had that Magnum PI look going on. He was supposed to be, he was lined up to be the next. He was going to take over once Hogan left the AWA, and he kind of had that look and everything.
Except for back in the day in W when it was World Championship Wrestling, whatever it was, what's the name? Magnum PA was the Magnum PI,
Yeah, Magnum TA.
Yeah, Magnum TA. What do you call it? Rip off, from Magnum PI.
Who was supposed to be also the next big star until he had that horrible car accident.
Crashed his Porsche or whatever it was. And then Goldberg actually wouldn't have been Goldberg for a while. Lucky he didn't sever his arm in that stupid stunt. He was trying to smash his elbow through the limousine window, a real one, not even a fake glass window.
Yeah, they didn't even gimmick the window.
Yeah, I mean, because he supposedly had some kind of a pipe or something. Supposedly,
but he had like a lead pipe. He was supposed to.
But he hit it and it went through the window and landed in the front seat and didn't do what he needed to do. So that's when he tried elbow smashing it, and you could see the blood squirt all over the car where he almost severed the tendons into his elbow.
Well, from what I heard, this was according to the in that book, The Death of WCW. He did not even have the metal pipe because he said it would make him look weak if he had to use a weapon to break the window. So that's why he threw the pipe down and hit it with his elbow instead, because he thought it would make him look cooler than
say at the end when he smashes the hood, you can see that.
And again, that did not add a single buy rate. I mean,
well, the whole thing back in then when they ruined WCW is when they gave for free the Hulk Hogan Goldberg match with Goldberg won the title. I don't know what the Raw or what I call it, Nitro.
Hey, so
they gave it away for free when people would have paid huge money at a pay per view and all that to watch it, and they gave it away for free. So that shows how stupid they were.
What I don't understand, WCW had the patience to run the Sting Hogan storyline for well over a year before they actually put them in the ring together, right? They had Sting coming in and beating them up, but they didn't actually put them against each other for over a year. So in one breath, they had all the patience in the world, and then all of a sudden with Goldberg, Hogan, they jumped to put it on TV so they could win the ratings for that week. Yeah, Star City Picker, they found Shad Gaspar's body today. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, Prime Time.
I saw them talking about it on Anthony's and Nate's show the other day.
Yeah, sorry, Frank. His last words were "Save my son" to the lifeguard, and then he got washed out to see it with a big wave that took him under. But his last words were "Save my son," according to the lifeguard that saved the boy. So.
Do you know if he knew how? Did they say like if he knew how to swim or anything like that, or
He just got taken out at an undercurrent thing. Just I guess his waves were real, and he was like 50 yards out from shore, which to me that's a long ways for to be. But that's where they lost him at. I guess when the lifeguard went and grabbed his son, and then he tried to, or a couple of them, they saw the dad. A big wave came and took him and just took him away, and that was the last they saw of him. And then they suspended the search.
Star City Picker, yeah. So they spend 15 months or whatever it was building up the Hogan Sting match, and I don't know if you remember the match, but Hogan beat Sting clean in the middle of the ring, and that's when they had Bret Hart was the special enforcer or whatever, and Bret Hart restarted the match. And then that's when Sting got Hogan in the Scorpion Deathlock, and then Bret Hart kind of called for the bell prematurely to kind of replay the Montreal screw job, so it was them screwing Hogan out of the belt. I mean, what do they say? They had Bret Hart from the Montreal screw job to his first match was 12 weeks later or something like that. Like,
yeah,
it was,
and then he got
the hottest. You literally have the hottest story in wrestling, the biggest name, the biggest everything going on, and you wait that long to put the guy in front of an audience again. I mean,
and then he gets kicked in the head, right? Goldberg, right?
Goldberg
kicked him legitimately in his head, and that's what pretty much ended his career.
Gave him the massive major concussion that ended his career. And what's sad about it was, once again, it was a match they were giving away. I believe that was on a Monday Nitro. I don't even think it was a pay-per-view match.
Yeah, it was. It was almost sad to see how far they went from to where they landed up at. I mean, the NWO thing was good, and then you got the NWO, and then they just kept. I mean, then you had 80 members of NWO, and then they broke off to the NWO Wolfpack, or was it Red NWO, and then you had the Japanese version of the NWO.
Yeah, they had the LWO, the Latino World Order, and then they had the Wolfpack, and they had
the new blood, no, whatever. Yeah, and then and then in the ECW had the Blue World Order.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
The Blue Meanie and
Richards.
The NWO started to get watered down when the Scott Nortons and the Michael Wall Streets and again, you talk about petty, the whole dating back to the NWA, WWF, NWA. So a lot of people don't realize, do you know why Ted DiBiase, his manager was Virgil? It was a shot at Dusty Rhodes, because Dusty Rhodes' real name is Virgil. So that's why his name was Virgil. That was Vince McMahon's shot at WCW, NWA, and Dusty Rhodes by naming Ted DiBiase's black, don't want to call him a slave because that's not what he was.
Bodyguard.
But you know what I mean? It was his, gopher, whatever you want to call him, and it was Virgil, which was kind of a play on Ted DiBiase with Virgil, Ted Turner with Virgil Runnels. Get at the connection now? And that's why when Erwin R. Shyster went to WCW, his original name was VK Wall Street, which stood for Vincent Kennedy McMahon, Vincent Kennedy Wall Street, Vincent New York. And then when Virgil went to WCW, His name was Shane in WCW, which was a knock at Shane McMahon. Petty.
You know what's odd? You know, I was watching a little bit of AEW before it came on. Well, I actually watched most of it, but it's funny listening to Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross on the same their color commentary together. And, you know, it used to go back and forth between kind of them two. You know, how it's weird seeing them together talking about stuff. And what's really weird is you never hear WWE mention any other organization like AEW or Impact, but they talked about it on AEW about you know, Crime Time, and they talked about some other, you know, tag team in the Hall of Famer, you know, Arn Anderson, Jake the Snake, and Arn Anderson are Hall of Famers, which only means the WWE Hall of Fame. But they talk about, you know, people other than just within the company, so that's kind of weird.
Well, you know, because Vince McMahon, his mindset has always been is he doesn't care who you are. He's going to remake you a star. So very rarely does anybody get to keep their gimmick from wherever they came from and become, you know, he always wants to reinvent them as you know, they talked about it during the Road Warriors deal last week. It was they already had an Ultimate Warrior. They already had Kerry Von Erich, the modern day Warrior, so they didn't want to have the Road Warriors, so that's why they brought him in as just strictly the Legion of Doom. Which actually, that documentary had it wrong. It literally had nothing to do with He-Man, because it was actually the reason why they got the name the Legion of Doom was from the old Superman in the Super Friends cartoon. Because that's when the guy would say, "Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom," you know.
Yeah, Lex Luthor and all those guys were. You know, I found funny was when they first came up with their uniforms and everything. What's his name? Animal says he bought his stuff from the sex shop.
Yeah,
his,
they look like
caps, his hat, his collar, his.
Yeah, they look like rejects from the Village People.
Yeah. That was kind of funny that he had said, "Yeah, we're trying to do it. That's where we bought our stuff from."
So yeah, I mean it, and that's what he did. The same thing when Dusty Rhodes went to WWE. You know, he couldn't just be the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, so he had to be the Common Man and
Sapphire
on him, and you know, throw Sapphire with him and
make him dance like an idiot around the thing, polka dots, and
you know, the only one that. Only a couple guys did he ever allow to be themselves. Hey, Nikki, good night. Thank you, darling. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Dropped off. His phone died. So, son, I'll talk to you later. But yeah, I don't know. It's wrestling is such a weird.
The only way you get to really keep your name is if you keep your whole name, like obviously Bill Goldberg. I mean, but anybody else, you know, he bought like WCW, so most of like Sting, you know, he probably owns all those trademarks and all that stuff. So that's why a lot of those guys, obviously like in A&E, you know, change their name, you know, or you know, obviously they got different. They're not most of them don't go by their real names anyway, but you know, they can't use, you know, Dean Ambrose can't go over there, so now he's John Moxley.
Yeah, because they, like I said, they do a good job of making sure that. And that's the reason why Vince McMahon does that. He doesn't want to take a guy that, like, say, like when the Ultimate Warrior was in WCCW World Class, he was the Dingo Warrior. They didn't want to bring him in as the Dingo Warrior because if they made him a star and then his contract ended, he could go to wherever and be the Dingo Warrior again. As to where he brought him in, changed him to the Ultimate Warrior, and now they own that trademark. So back in 94, 95, whatever it was, when they were going to bring in the Ultimate Surprise and Hogan was doing all the deals. He was going to have the Ultimate Tag Team Partner and the Ultimate this and that. And they couldn't bring in the Ultimate Warrior, so they brought in the Renegade, which was a ripoff of the Ultimate Warrior. But again, that's why they did that, was so that they didn't have to, they couldn't use. And even when the Ultimate Warrior went to WCW back in 99, 2000, whatever it was. That's why he was just the Warrior. He wasn't the Ultimate Warrior. They had to call him Warrior.
And
Because
actually, Sting
he
and
legally changed his name to Warrior.
Sting and the Ultimate Warrior were they're a tag team together, weren't they?
Yeah, they were the
Blade Runners.
Rock and
Roll.
Rock and Sting, or Sonny, what's up? Rock and Blade. No.
Let me see if I can find out who they were.
Maybe Star City Pick, are you still in here? Was he Rock and Blaze or?
They were Blade, and Flash.
Flash.
No. Well, hold on. Let's see. Hold on. Oops. Let's see. Let's see. They were.
Rock and Sting, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, Rocket. Yeah, there's Blade Runner, Rock, and they were the Freedom Fighter Justice. Were their name too? Let's see. Yeah, that's what. They initially wrestled as the Freedom Fighters. Warrior was Justice, and Morton was Flash. And then they went to be called Blade and something else. I can't. Yeah.
Blade.
Yeah, and the Road Warriors to go back to the Road Warriors, they got their thing from the movie The Road Warrior or Mad Max, right?
But yeah, so where the team or the name the Legion of Doom came from was back when the Legion of Doom was actually like Hawk, Animal, I think Jake Roberts and King Kong Bundy were all part of a faction called the Legion of Doom. Meanwhile,
hold on. I was gonna see what the.
Because I could have swore Jake Roberts was one of the.
Yeah, I think you're. Let's see.
So in the early 1980s, the NWA Georgia Championship Wrestling, Paul Ellering introduced a stable called the Legion of Doom that consisted of the Road Warriors, Jake the Snake Roberts, the Spoiler, Matt Bourne, King Kong Bundy, Arn Anderson, the Iron Sheik, and the Original Sheik.
Yeah, I didn't know all of them, weren't there?
I knew about Bundy and Jake the Snake. That's when Jake Roberts used to wear he wore red long pants to the ring.
Matt Bourne, was he one of the Doink the Clown?
He's the original Doink.
Doink, the original Doink, right? And then King Kong Bundy was related to what you call it, Al Bundy, right?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people thought that the Bundys were named after Ted Bundy.
There's actually King Kong Bundy. Right?
Yeah, actually. So here's a fun little fact. So the writers and the creators of Married with Children were such huge wrestling fans, is the reason why the Bundys were named after King Kong Bundy. And here's a little secret not a lot of people know. What was Marcy and Steve's last name?
Rhodes.
Which was named after Dusty Rhodes. That's what their last name came from. See, you learn things on Wrestling with Storylines. The Mulkey, Randy, and what were their names? Randy and I know one of them's name was Randy.
Let's see.
Right, Sonny? How many of us, did that? You put the rubber bands around the biceps to try to get the veins to pop out, and
Bill and Randy Mulkey.
Mulkey Mania running wild.
Who was everybody talks about WCW and WWE, but the AWA had some weird characters back in the day. They had the fuck rock and roll zoom off, the fake like Elvis type of character carry the big old wish I had his boombox because it was some money.
Right.
But you had a lot of those. You had remember Jerry Blackwell and Stan Hansen and all those. And then they had.
Hold on, I'm gonna bring up a picture, and you want to talk about. I won't say anything until I bring up this picture. This might be worth popping up a couple pictures. Okay, wait for it. I'm going to bring up, if people don't think, if Vern Gagne was good for one thing in his life, oh, where is it at? Now I can't find the stupid picture. Oh, come on. Hold on, bear with me. We're having technical difficulties.
Remember what's it called? The Midnight Rockers, I think, started in AWA, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. Remember the proverbial bloodbath between them and was it Pretty Boy
Buddy Rose and Doug Summers?
Yeah. I remember. I think she used to watch AWA. It was on ESPN or something, I believe, back in the day.
Yeah, they were one of the first.
Seemed like it was one every 6 months. I get to watch a wrestling match back then.
Darn it! Why is my picture not showing up on here?
Dan says that him and King Kong Bundy share the same birthday.
November 7th, and Bundy passed away last year.
Did he really? How do you know?
Chris, what was his real name? Chris, I can't remember his real name now.
Who?
But yeah, he passed away. There's some good YouTube videos where he talks about like some of the wrestling storylines and what he would get paid compared to like other wrestlers during pay-per-views and stuff like that. I mean, hold on, folks.
King Kong Bundy's real name is Christopher Allen Paley's or Paley's. He died last year, March 4th. What are you trying to show?
Hold on. I can't ruin the surprise.
Well, it kind of is already. What surprise? I'm surprised. Are we going to be really surprised?
It's just weird. It's not coming up on my screen, and it's kind of annoying me. Oh.
Yeah, Las Vegas Thrift's talking about Miss Elizabeth. Yeah, she came out. Yeah, she was so shy and this and that in WWE. And then she kind of went out of her shell. Even like in her the Dark Side of the Ring video, they talk about she kind of broke out. And came a little bit more of a character. In WCW. And then everything.
I actually, Danny's talking about Rick Martel. I thought he would have been. I don't know if they gave him enough of a chance as the champion. I always liked Rick Martel. I didn't like him when he became the model and all that stuff.
Hey, he used to have the atomizer thing with
his
cologne or whatever.
His arrogance, cologne arrogance. That's good stuff. I wear that on the daily.
Yeah, I heard it sold out at the stores when they went up for on sale.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, the whole when Dan's talking about Wendy Rickler when they had the old rock and wrestling thing going on, with the Captain Lou Albano and the girls just want to have fun using the videos.
And then they had the original screw job when they had the Spider Lady beat Wendy Rickler.
Yeah.
Man, my computer is acting up.
Did you
I may have to do it a different way. If I can't do it this one last time, I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't,
did you watch the Fabulous Moolah one, the Dark Side of the Ring?
Yeah.
I don't, depending on who you list here, because there's kind of two sides to that. It seemed like, some people say she was this, she was that, but she sounded like she was an awful person, according to some people.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on who you talk to. She was either the biggest scum of the earth or she was the salt of the earth, one of the two. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to move this tab over here. We're going to widen this screen, and then I'm going to share this screen because how could this guy... Hold on, my computer, Jesus. I mean, the physique alone, and, if there's one thing old Vern was not guilty of was nepotism. Look at that guy. That guy just screams champion.
Oh, yeah, he had
to make sure his son... Oops.
Yeah, it was 6'1", 220.
I mean, look at this. There was another picture I had of this clown. I mean, the dude was built like,
like a dad.
Look at that. This guy just screamed money.
Who's his, who did he tag up with? Who was the...
Jim Brunzell.
Jumping Jim Brunzell, right?
Yeah, they were the high flyers. Okay, this is taking forever now, so I'll stop screening that. But yeah, I mean, really great gun. And Vern, the only thing Vern never did was make him his world champion.
No, he
was every other champion in his own,
They gave it to Nick Bockwinkel, who looked like he was in his 60s already back then. He didn't age very well, and he was a champion for a long time.
Well, and then, so when Vern couldn't give him the title, he didn't want to give his son the title, so he gives the title to Larry Zbyszko, who was his son-in-law. Larry Zbyszko was married to Vern's daughter, so keep it close to the family,
Yeah, that's the one we used to. That's the one we used to ditch you for back in the day. It was go see AWA. So you didn't, it was fun, but yeah, it was pretty not good.
I was gonna say, yeah. Looking back at the roster they had, well, when you guys were ditching me, that was when they actually had a hell of a roster back in.
You get Baron von Roschke.
And that's all that people need to know.
The claw. That was kind of doing his goose step and his claw. I mean, his hand with the claw.
Spike Dudley, that guy, yeah, he was either fearless or stupid. I haven't decided which one, Chris, but he was one of the two, that's for sure. Or maybe a little bit of both. Gorgeous ladies of wrestling. I'll briefly brush over this real quick. 2 things about Glow. 3 things. 1, there's a really good documentary on Netflix about it. If you guys haven't had a chance to watch it, it's actually really good. Number 2 was when I think they were called like the Headhunters or something, broke Susie Spirit's elbow, which they show in the Netflix documentary.
His dick got dislocated. It was like gnarly.
Yeah.
It was like it's like bent way wrong.
And number 3,
it was pretty much like softcore porn, to be honest with
you. It's 9 p.m. Mountain Time, so we're probably safe. There was an episode where, what was her name, like the California Dream or the California Girl or something?
California Doll or something like that.
Yeah, her
yeah. It became a it was definitely a thing.
Let me just. It was more than a camel toe that was shown on live television.
Be clean, Frankie.
That's why I'm trying to step around the landmines, but it was very. Let me put it this way:
graphic.
How the hell it made it to broadcast television
when there's supposed to be a delay, right? Even back then,
delay. It was obviously not taped live, and it was on like a Saturday midday. And all of a sudden, you could see that the California Doll, or whatever her name, believed in Brazilian waxing. Let me put it that way, because everything was shown. How the
censors
didn't catch that, or either that or a censor got fired after that. Those are the three most memorable things I remember about Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Yeah,
what was her name? Tina Ferrari turned into Ivory and was the women's champion for a while.
Yep.
Amanda said, they let it slide. I more than slid on that one. That was Dan, when Vicky Guerrero
excuse me.
She was bad.
But that's a good character though, that you hate her so much that you
But I mean that's the difference. I mean she was annoying and obnoxious, but it contributed to the show.
Yeah.
No way Jose will never do any like
I hate to say this, but they're great high flyers and they do all these fantastic moves. But I just like the Lucha House Party, and I'm even getting tired of even Rey Mysterio. No offense to the luchadors stuff. It's old already. You know what I mean? It's like we know
back in 96, 97 when Eric Bischoff and ECW was doing that. It was innovative. It was great television. It was great filler matches that were actually gave you really good wrestling in between the crappy Hogan, matches or whatever. But I mean, we were at a live Raw a couple years ago when Kurt Angle hyped the whole night about he was going to have a big surprise. It ended up being Sin Cara or something, remember? And I mean, that arena was quieter with 2,000 people in the arena than it was this past Monday with no fans in the arena. That's how over that was,
Well, they hype them up. They do all these vignettes. This person's coming. This coming. It's like, well, okay. So.
And don't get me wrong, I love a good technical match. You know, they talked during the documentary last night. Owen versus Brett, WrestleMania 10 opening match. Probably top 10, 15 matches of all time. Definitely probably a top 5 in WrestleMania history, you know. But
I do gotta say now, because I still watch wrestling because there ain't nothing else on TV, to be honest, even as bad as it is. But I gotta tell you, the tag team divisions in both Raw and SmackDown are like crap right now. They got the, what do you call it, the Viking Raiders now doing comedy things with the champions. What are they called? The Street Profits, whatever. Like this past Monday, yesterday they had a supposedly axe throwing contest, because the week before that it was a basketball game. And it's they're not even wrestling. And I know they got to have a lot of filler now because they're playing in empty stadiums and stuff. But the tag team divisions are really bad right now.
Yeah, for months they kept hyping those Street Profits. and horrible. They do nothing for me that makes me want to.
It's another takeoff, almost like Crime Time again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Crime Time didn't work the first time, and again, God rest his soul. Sam, hold on. Shad Gaspard passing away. Give this to Mom. Those are the shirts I need. But the Crime Time gimmick didn't work the first time, and now they're doing it again. And
well, yeah, you know, then you got all these. You have all these supposedly mean characters that came out of NXT that were these, you know, mean, you know, Viking guys that just beat the heck out of each other. Now, they're actually, it was supposed to, from what I read, they're supposed to be, the Revival was supposed to be that group where they were like turn into a comedy act, that type of thing. So they turned these guys that were supposed to be these vicious, you know, Viking guys that are going to come and beat up everybody, be the ultimate heels. And now they're doing these comedy bits and it just looks stupid now, you know?
well, like, you know, again, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to watch a lot of AEW, but
I do got to say it's almost starting to get a little bit more interesting than the WWE is. I mean,
well, that's what. Yeah, I was just going to say.
they got
With
some
the
good
exception of
people.
the whole Matt Hardy getting all hurt because his drone got broken or whatever last week. I mean, at least one, you know me, I like the Attitude Era and the thing about it. I wish they would bring back blood, but here's the deal, and I get what they're saying. A lot of the wrestlers say you can't have blood in every single match on the card at a pay-per-view. You can't have blood in the opening match of the night and then expect people to there to be the blood have some sort of a significance in the main event. You know what I mean? So you got to do it sparingly. But to me, there's just certain things you got to expect. If you're gonna brag about a Hell in the Cell match or a cage match, elimination chamber match, or
I quit, or you know, what do you call it? No disqualification. You know, any of that stuff. Yeah, there's certain places where I think you do it effectively, you know, without doing it too much or watering it down, you know.
and then again, I don't mean to sound I mean, I'm not this America kind of thing, but I like to get behind my wrestlers, and about the only I have a hard time getting behind a wrestler that you can barely understand when they're speaking. The only one I really liked, and of course they sent him back down to NXT, was Finn Balor. There's another guy that the fans, I think he'd have been better suited to keep on Raw or SmackDown because at least he draws fans. I mean, and I say it this way: when my dad is sitting in my living room on my recliner, and when Finn Balor comes out and our dad is doing this, you know what I mean? That is the sign that he's over. So then they send him to NXT. Same with Charlotte Flair. Send her to NXT. They have her win the Royal Rumble. Right? She won the Royal Rumble this year?
Yeah, she's doing all three now. She's on SmackDown, she's on Raw, and because they hyping it, the what do you call it, the brand exchange or something or other, where they can go within the brands or whatever to do, to do the matches or whatever.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. I liked when the Ultimo Dragon was in WWE, and who was the other guy that did the what was it called, the Tarantula or something? He was Japanese.
I know
it wasn't Funaki.
Funaki. Or what was the other one that turned into a Japanese cowboy? What was his name?
Oh yeah.
Funaki does commentary now for the Japanese network on WWE on pay-per-views. Remember?
Yeah, and I know, Chris, I'm sure that had a lot to do with it, bringing some star power back to NXT to draw the fans to.
It was something Nakamura.
No,
That's Shinsuke
that's not,
Nakamura.
he's that one looked like never mind. That guy gets out of my nerves. I don't like him at all.
Shinsuke Nakamura, whatever.
Yeah, when he's walking down
What was
the,
that guy's name? I can't think of his name. He was
it's not Tajiri, is it?
Tajiri. I liked him as a wrestler. He was a good wrestler. Obviously, he couldn't talk or anything on the mic, but he was a good wrestler. Again, he was one of those guys that was a good match to actually have some real pure wrestling during a pay-per-view or whatever. You want to talk about somebody that was way ahead of her time? I don't know if you remember the first time Lita came out with who was the guy that she came out with when she first started wrestling?
Oh, it was a Mexican wrestler guy, right? What was his name?
Chris might know his name. But remember how crazy people went because there was this chick and she had a tattoo on her shoulder. S.A. Rios. There you go, Dan.
Yep.
But remember she had the big, that like
It was
Aztec,
yeah, it's like
whatever you want to call it.
looked like a Mayan calendar type thing.
Yeah, and I just remember people were crazy because, oh my God, this chick has a tattoo. That was so taboo back in the day. Was, no self-respecting woman would have a tattoo, especially one that was
That big.
visible like that and so big. And then now you look at all these women now and they're covered in them, right?
Yeah.
S.A. Rios. Yeah, that was WWE.
Didn't he have like red hair or something?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, she definitely that was the last person he needed to have as a manager because she took everything away from him. I seem to remember a certain Rena Miro, also known as Sable, did that with her husband Johnny B. Good or whatever was his name.
Mark Miro. Johnny B. Bad.
Also, Johnny B. Bad. That was his name.
Johnny B. Bad in WCW. And then he turned to Mark Miro in his real name back in WWE. Now Sable's married to Lesnar, right?
Yeah, she's got a couple. By the way, has anybody seen Brock Lesnar's daughter?
Yeah, it's
His
like
older daughter?
it's like him, but without the muscle.
Yeah, she's a female version of him.
Blonde hair. I mean, just
like
pale skin. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Albino. That's what she does.
Seriously.
Yeah, she's.
What about some other? We got a few more minutes. We'll probably run this about another till about 9:30. A couple other bad gimmicks in wrestling. Remember PN News, the rapper in WCW? Let's take a really fat guy with no talent that doesn't know how to rap and tell him to rap. Right, Dan? Brock's daughter looks like she could work in the Pit of Despair from the Princess Bride.
I've never seen that movie.
What?
I just don't like those fantasy type things like that.
That is a great movie. And it's got Andre the Giant.
That's the only reason I know it has Andre the Giant in it. I got to tell you a story about he's not a wrestler, but he was the biggest person I've ever seen in my entire life. Who was in the movie My Giant with Billy Crystal, the basketball player, John Mearshon. I had the luxury of staring at his crotch when he tapped on my back when I was working at McNichols Arena for a basketball game, and I heard somebody tap me on my shoulder. And I turned around and I'm looking at this guy's crotchal area because he's like 7'7".
You sure it was his finger that was tapping you?
Yeah, he could have. You never know. But yeah, I turned around and I'm literally looking at his like belly button area, and he's asking in his whatever he was Yugoslavian, where's the locker room was at, and I just kind of started there, and I just kind of kept looking up, and there he was, seven. I think he's 7'7", I believe.
Yeah, something like that. So here's a little fun fact for you.
Hold on, I got a reverse thing to that. One time I was walking in the hallway and they had a bank of payphones back in the day, and there was I thought it was like a little teenager or a kid on the phone, and I look, and it was Muggsy Bogues, who was 5'5" or something like that. Or so he was. I go from one guy to the other guy I've seen in my life. So
here's a little fun fact. You were talking about that movie My Giant with Billy Crystal. That movie is loosely based on Billy Crystal's experience filming The Princess Bride with Andre the Giant, because he saw how Andre had to live life as such a huge person and how difficult it was to live and do the most simple, basic things. And so that's where the movie The My Giant actually kind of came from. See, you learned everything on Wrestling with Storylines. We give you fun facts. Muggsy Bogues, 5'3".
yeah, I mean, I'm not the tallest person in the world, but I was like, oh yeah, I was standing kind of, over it. I'm like 4 inches, 5 inches taller than him, But yeah, I saw him, and then it was Muggsy Bogues. Yeah, I was thinking it wasn't Spudway. I know it wasn't him, but it was Muggsy Bogues.
I'm trying to think who's the tallest person I ever met. There was that bouncer at that strip club that one night when you and Greg took me to Saturdays. That bouncer was going to beat me up because I just turned 18, and he looked like the Undertaker. He had a big old trench coat, cowboy hat.
Yeah, like I said, the second tallest person that ever kind of like walked by me was Andre the Giant.
Me and my dad were at the a Clash of the Champions right after the NWO gimmick started, and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash ran down the aisle. Me and Dad were right on the aisle, and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash ran down our aisle we were on. That was pretty cool. So
I was at and when I was in spring training down in Tucson, they had some. It was not WWE. It was just what do you call it? Independent promotion. They had wrestling at one of the casinos in their like little amphitheater area, whatever. And it was like you walk. Here's general admission. You walk around. So we literally got front row seats. And Mick Foley was actually one of the guest wrestlers there. He didn't wrestle, but he kind of did like a run in or whatever. And he's walking around. He's walking around the thing, and he stops in front of us. I'm like, me and my friends are like, "Where's Mr. Sacco at?" And then he's like looking around, and then he digs into his pants, and then goes and gives Mr. Sacco to whoever that was in the ring. That the heel that was in the ring gave him the Sacco thing, and stuff. So I gotta that was my talk to him, to Mick Foley.
all right, we're gonna cut it down. I gotta get some orders shipped out, so.
Yeah, we need to start shipping some more.
Anyway, so. But all right, guys, we'll.
Speaking of that, real quick, I'm gonna have to. Maybe we'll have to do a wing night because I got those wings I gotta get you. And then maybe we'll do a wing. I gotta bring some stuff so we can put it on.
Okay.
It's not a lot. I gotta test that radio I got. Well, I hope it works because that was a pretty good deal. Got a few toys and a couple things. So.
All right, text me tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm gonna take tomorrow off because I work at the Coliseum on Sunday. So technically, I had Saturday and Sundays off. So I worked Sunday, and Saturday was my one day, and then I'm thinking of taking tomorrow for my second day off this week. I got to work there Friday and Sunday morning again. So but
next week, I want to talk about next week. There's only a couple of us left in here, but next week I want to talk about. We'll bring up some pictures and stuff. I want to talk about wrestling belts and stuff like that, and the crappy ones they have now and whatnot. So, one of the subjects to talk about. So, all right, I'm gonna end the show, and I'll text you later, bro.
Okay. All right. Bye. Bye, Dan. If you're still in there.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.